Okay, we're ready to do the worksheet for 2D here in the Math 4 class. Yeah, I've been kind of wondering this one myself for a while. All right, number 1. Describe all of the asymptotes, intercepts, and holes in the graphs. All right, so we're going to need to, first of all, factor this out. So we're going to wind up with x plus 2, x plus 3 on top. And we're going to wind up with x plus 3, x plus 3 on the bottom. Now that is going to create these guys to cancel out. So we have a hole at x equals -3. We also have a, well, I'm going to leave it there, a vertical asymptote at x equals -3. Now think about this just a minute. If I'm going to have that imaginary dotted line going through where x is 3, why would a hole be important there? It's already not supposed to be going through there in the first place. So my question is, isn't this a little redundant? It is. It is. It's nice to technically know that a hole is supposed to be there, but the asymptote is kind of taking up all the space, so to speak. All right, now when we start talking about horizontal asymptotes, we are looking at that, and we are looking at that. And because they match, I'm looking at the numbers that are in front. There's an understood 1 in front of each one of those. So the y is technically going to be 1/1, which you might as well just say it's 1. And that is the horizontal asymptote. Now, as to the x-intercepts, remember we said that if it's a hole in one of them, then we don't really count that, but we do count the other one on top. Remember, it's a question of the factors that are on the top that are important for the x-intercepts. Now, for the y-intercepts, we look at the constants that are on the right. That would be the 6 and the 9, which we can reduce that down to 2/3. Please, 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 if you have the ability to reduce a fraction, I am expecting you to, without direction, every time, okay? Do not leave it as 6/9. All right, that should be number 1. Number 2, there is nobody canceling out, so there are no holes. For a vertical asymptote, there are 2 of them. If I were to, well, I'll go ahead and spell it out this way, taking that one and solving. So I would say maybe -1.5 and x equals +1. Those are my vertical asymptotes. Now at this point I have, if I were to multiply this out, I would wind up with an x on the top and an x squared on the bottom. That's what I'm looking at, x to the 1 over x to the 2. And because it is bottom heavy, I heard it this way. It's kind of like having a boat that you want all the weight in the bottom or all the weight in the top. If you have all the weight in the bottom, then it's going to kind of sink down to water level. But if you have all the weight in the top, it's going to dip over. It's going to flip over. Capsize, I believe, is the word I'm looking for. And that's going to mean disaster for everybody. So maybe that's a way to keep this straight is, is my boat bottom heavy or top heavy? Bottom heavy is okay. You get a y equals 0, but top heavy, it ain't going to happen. It's not going to stay afloat for very long. Now, that is the holes and asymptotes. Now let's look at the X-Intercept. I do have one on top that is not a hole or anything like that. And my Y-intercept, if I were to multiply this out, I would get 2x squared, and I would get plus 1x, and I would get minus 3. So I have a positive 3 on top, and I have a negative 3 on the bottom, which is negative 1. And just as I think I'm done with it, I just glance at my two intercepts and I glance at my holes and asymptotes and just make sure that there is no problems here. No conflict of interest or anything like that. Right. Number 3, if we were to factor these guys, it would look something like this. I'd have an x and an x plus 1 on top, and I'd have 2x squared minus 2 becomes 2 times x squared minus 1, which can break down to x plus 1, x minus 1. Hopefully you remember that the difference of squares, if I have like x squared minus 9, I could break that up into x plus 3, x minus 3. So down here on the bottom, I've got 2 times x plus 1 times x minus 1. And of course, I do have one set that cancel out, so I have a hole at x equals negative 1. I have a vertical asymptote where x is positive 1. When I start considering a horizontal asymptote, I go back here and I say these guys were matched. So I am looking at the numbers in front. 1/2. The 1 comes from the understood 1 in front of that x squared, and the half comes from the 2 in front of that x squared. Because the squareds are matching, we take the coefficients in front and make a fraction out of them. Now, here for X-Intercept, the x plus 1 canceled out, so we're going to have a hole at x equals negative 1, which doesn't count as an intercept. But the other guy does. I mean, x equals 0. The whole idea is that all of these factors, I would set them equal to 0 and solve them for their solutions. Well, if the factor is x and I set it equal to 0, then x equals 0. Doesn't go any further than that. Y-intercept, technically this is plus 0 on the end. So I have literally y equals 0 over negative 2, which is just y equals 0. That is what my graph is going to look like there. Okay. This one, we're going to break up the top. X plus 2, x minus 2 over x plus 2, which means we will have a hole here. We'll have a hole at x equals negative 2. Vertical, well, I usually abbreviate that. Vertical asymptote, we have none. And for the horizontal asymptote, Let's see now, we have an x squared and we have an x to the 1. Since it is top heavy, we have none. Oh, let's see, X-Intercepts. The only one we really have is x equals 2, because there is a hole at x equals -2. And for the y-intercepts, we have y equals the -4 on top, the +2 on the bottom. So we have a y-intercept where y is -2. Okay. Now, this was one of those games which I think I've described to this room. I know that I've described it to my Math 2s, that anytime that you've got things in backwards order, you really wish that that said x squared minus 9 instead of 9 minus x squared. But technically what's going on here is that we can rewrite it this way, like that. And if we really prefer not to have a negative in front of it, let's factor it out. -1 x squared minus 9. Now that begins to look a little more doable. As a matter of fact, we can break it down even further, x plus 3, x minus 3, on both the top and the bottom. And we've got some canceling out to do, don't we? Yacht, 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 yacht. So we know that we have a hole both at x equals -3 and x equals +3. Vertical asymptote, we have none. Horizontal asymptote, we have matching. Oh, you got to watch this one. Horizontal asymptote, we have matching exponents, both x squared, which means that we're going to pay attention to our coefficients in front, which in this case would be -1/1. Now, x-intercepts, we're not going to have any because they're all holes. Y-intercept, I guess you would say that we have technically a +9 on top and we have a -9 on the bottom, which we already have a horizontal asymptote. Yeah, that's fine. Because the horizontal asymptote overrules, wait a minute now, yeah, that's the same thing. Horizontal asymptote overrules the y-intercept. It's not going to exist there. So you're not going to have a y-intercept. So this guy has neither x-intercept nor a y-intercept. It has a horizontal asymptote and it has a couple of holes, and that's it. A very weird graph, that's for sure. All right, we're going to do one more, and then we're going to go to a different. We're going to split this up into 2 videos. All right, guy on the bottom, 2x squared minus 8 can be 2 times x squared minus 4, which can be 2 times x plus 2x minus 2. So we're going to rewrite this in terms of 2 times x plus 2 times x minus 2. Yacht and yacht. We're going to have a hole at x equals -2. We're going to have a vertical asymptote where x is +2. And as to the horizontal asymptote, I have an x to the 1 on top. I have an x to the 2 on the bottom. That is bottom heavy. That means I am going to have an asymptote at y equals 0. Let's see, X-intercept. I just have the hole, which is not an X-intercept. The y-intercept, I had a +2 on the top. I had a -8 on the bottom. And again, doesn't matter whether the negative is on top or on the bottom. All right, we're going to stop here and pick up with number 7 in the next video.